Check, check, check. There we go. Should be working now. I'll have to edit that later. Let's start again. Hi, everybody. What's up? It's Pete. You can hear me now? Yeah, sorry about that. I forgot one little step. The streaming software I use always defaults to my UA audio interface, which I wish it wouldn't do. I just wish it would default to the system setting, because I stopped using any kind of fancy microphones or anything for this. They're good enough. The ones that come in your Mac or in your iPhone or in your, they work great. And I used to use, it's still great. I've got my SM7 here if I want to do it, and mic pre and the whole 9 yards, or I can just do this. And I bet it actually sounds pretty much just fine. Right. So anyways, long story short, sorry about yesterday. I was just cutting some bass guitar here. Sorry about yesterday. Food poisoning, full on food poisoning. And as usual with food poisoning with me, it lasts about 24 hours and then I'm good. And that's what happened. I haven't had it for 13 years. And it was so weird because I was just talking about it with Dave Friedman the afternoon of, and I was like, yeah, we were telling food poisoning stories. Oh man, this one time I was on a plane and whatever, like telling the stories. And I was like, thank God I haven't had that. But 12 hours later, there it was. It was brutal. This fella saying your response to those lowlifes on Facebook were absolute gold. I get a lot of people. Well, let's talk about this for a minute. So I get a lot of people on social media. It's daily for ever since I've been doing social media, but also just in my life in general, that talk about my bum eye, and they just say terrible shit, about it. And it's so curious to me because I just feel like if there's somebody that's a paraplegic, for instance, or like I say, confined to a wheelchair or something, do you go on Facebook and make fun of them? Like, do you say things on their pictures and things that point out a physical handicap? Because it's the same thing. It's a physical handicap, So anyway, I was just making a stink about it. I got all, more than I usually do, because there was a number of comments on the last post I put up on Instagram about it. And it's just like, I don't know if it's, maybe they're not even real accounts. It's hard to say these days. It's all of social media is such a mess these days, but you don't know who you're really talking to or what you're dealing with. But anyways, the funny thing is that I'm actually getting this operation coming up soon. So I'm actually having a strabismus operation, and we'll see how that goes. So that'll be in a couple weeks. So I might see it one more time before I get that done. And then it'll be a whole new me. But who knows? Maybe my eye will be way out here, wandering off into some other place, depending on how close they can get it surgically to where it's supposed to be. But we'll see. I just had a very interesting kind of consultation session with a woman that is actually for her genre and what she's known for, which is vision therapy. She's kind of a big YouTuber. And so anyway, I paid for a session with her for 45 minutes to talk about strabismus surgery. She had a fairly severe case of it and has been very successful in treating it. And so I found it very interesting. So I sat there and just kind of peppered her with questions for 45 minutes. She gave me some good exercises and things to do. And I'm going to follow up with her after I have it all done and everything. But anyway, it'll be interesting. So that's what's going on in my life. Before all of that, in 2 days, I go to Japan to play a gig day after tomorrow. So just one show, and then I'll hang a couple more days, turn around, come all the way back again. So 3 trips to Japan. Craziness. 3 trips to Japan this fall. I'm blessed. It's fantastic. Did you hear Bonamassa injured his ears? I did hear that he lost all the high end in one side. And it was some sort of, they classified it as like a acoustic trauma. So that's not good. I hope he is able to get that under control and stuff, because obviously I think it's much like with anything physical, we all get a window of time where, and for some of us, it seems to, where people can be more or less resilient to things. And then it seems to just wear on us eventually, doesn't it? So certainly with the ears, it's like, I've become more aware in the last few years that my ears are more sensitive than they used to be. So it's an interesting topic for sure. I'm going to put this bass down. Let me do that. Let's mute that. Mute. Oh, it didn't work. Come on, Pete. You know how to do that. There we go. Get rid of this bass for a minute. But yeah, I noticed in this past year that I was having this kind of, I think it was allergy related, but I was having kind of like a high buzzing whine kind of thing go on that was in my in both ears. It would just seem like I was more sensitive to loud sound, and it would manifest as, this was last spring, it would manifest as kind of like a buzzing sort of like, you know, anytime I was listening to things, especially like loud guitar, this was unpleasant to listen to for a little bit. And it's largely kind of resolved, which is nice. But yeah, I don't know if it was allergy. I think it's kind of allergy related. But long story short, I think that it all ties in, like whether or not you're prone to like allergic kind of stuff or whatever. But also just you know, that it all ties in. So if you've been hammering your ears with volume for a long time, and then you get, if you know, get an allergy or something that crops up, it seems to all play in, is what I'm saying. I'm not explaining it very well, what I think, but, and it's all anecdotal. So, but anyways, I wish Joe a speedy recovery, and, you know, that he's able to sort it out and figure out what to do, you know, as far as volume going, you know, down the road into the future. I need your expert advice. I fall in love with PT-15IR. It's ideal for me, but getting out from bedroom to live gig requires cabinet. I play rock, learn some jazz. Which cab would you recommend? Well, I mean, we make a series of cabinets that are pair with it nicely. The one that goes with it is great. It's a little like sort of 212 that's kind of a diagonal pattern. It looks like a little baby, you know, like a 412, but it's sized down. And the speakers are just there's a V30 and a greenback, and that's a terrific cabinet because then you've got V30 and greenback. You can pick which one you want to mic for different styles, different musical situations. So I'd recommend that. The 112 that comes with it, or whatever, or it is in our line, doesn't come with it. Shouldn't say that. That's complete misinformation. It doesn't include a cabinet. But the 112 that you see most people get with it, you know, the matching 112, it's got an H75 creamback in it. That's a nice pairing as well. I'm not the biggest fan of 112s, but if you keep the volume low, they're fine, I think. I just find that in a band situation, when you turn them up and you always want it to sound like a 412, that they tend to leave me usually fairly like, you know, I think the 212 is worth it, you know, to go. It's not really that big or menacing to carry around or anything like that. So I would recommend the 212. That's what I would say. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Is that a Warwick? It is a Warwick. My bass is it's a Warwick Streamer bass. I had one in Showcore, but the sound guy hated the sound of it. Made me use a Thunderbird. Yeah, I mean, they have a sound, you know, the Warwick and the Spectres and stuff. To me, it's like a big piano. They've got that piano-like low end, but they're so clear and stuff, and I love that. It's a totally different thing than a Thunderbird or a P-bass or something. It depends what you're doing, you know. I find it's a great bass for somebody that's, you know, I'm not primarily a bass player, so I find for me it works well because it makes me sound like I'm a better bass player than I am. It's just real clear. The neck through design and everything like that lends itself to even notes and long sustain and all that stuff. So I would love a nice old P bass one of these days, though, like a vintage P. Yeah. One of these days. Let's see. What else we got here? Some people are mentioning that this fellow saying his daughter had the same surgery at age 1, and as well, that's great. I had it when I was really young, but it obviously didn't work that well. So, I think a lot has changed since then because that was a long time ago when I was young. A long time ago. They must be able to do it better now. So we'll see. Yeah. What else we got here? Tracked with my Blackguard 52-ish Sir Telly last night. Sounds great. That's awesome. Yeah, Sir T's are great. Avoid Advil. Yeah, I have heard the NSA, whatever, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, NSAIDs, they can cause non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Yeah, NSAID. Yeah, that's right. I don't know as much about Tylenol, but people have said Advil. Yeah. That can cause some sort of ringing. Recommended for guitarists looking to fill bass parts on recording or live show. I know nothing about bass gear on a recording or live show. I think you're asking somebody else, but I would say my favorite thing as far as like an inexpensive good bass tone is either some variety of Sansamp, either the standard bass DI from them, which is awesome, I think, or maybe the Geddy Lee one if you like a little more drive. Awesome. I've got the rack mount version here, but I know the pedal is really good too. Like one of those with just a good P bass and a tuner can be a great thing. Yeah. Okay, what else? Alex says, you're such a nice guy. Thanks. How can anyone say anything negative about you? Well, people find a way out there at internet land to be jerks. It's usually on Facebook. So I don't know. I don't even trust it's real, to be honest. I think, without getting into anything other than just that thing that happened a few days ago on X, it's all a big psychological operation being levied against us to get to hate one another. They showed all these X accounts that were like created overseas that were posing as Americans, right? The other day. It's like, oh, you're in Nigeria, or you're in Russia, or you're in India, or you're in Vietnam, but you're posing as an American. Okay. It's just basically, that's the you don't know what you're looking at anymore. And that's kind of what it's designed to do, is just so, mistrust amongst us all. Let's not go there. Let's be here on Sunday Live and just enjoy each other's company. Yeah. What else are we talking about here? Let's see. I'm torn between I'm torn between a tur. I'm torn between a Sir. I'm torn between a Tur. Classic S and the Classic S Antique. Which one would you pick? The main differences seem to be neck shape and finish and the pickups. If you're ordering sight unseen, it's hard to say. They're both going to be great and similar quality. If you want the one that's going to patina and age and all that, then, the Classic S. If you want one that looks like it's going to look 5 years from now exactly like it does today, then the Classic, not the Antique, because it's not lacquer. The Classic will be like a poly finish. So if you want it looking shiny and new, go that route. That's one way to decide. Classic S might be a satin neck too, whereas the Classic S Antique might be some sort of more raw feel. I'm not 100% sure about that, what they're doing with the neck. I think the Classic S Antique is a roasted neck. Let's just take a look so that we can talk about this with some. They change the features sometimes, and I just forget. So, let's see. Sir.com. I'm going to take a look here, and let's go over and look at the differences. So, Classic S Antique. Wide variety. So it's a Stixie C vintage medium neck. So pretty, that neck's got a little bit of beef to it. V63s. What about, it doesn't actually look like the neck, at least on the photographs here, is roasted. Just 60C vintage medium. It's not a roasted neck. I've got a 60s telly though from them. That's an antique that does have a roasted neck. So I don't know. Maybe that was just a different run they did or something. That's what I mean. You got to look at the website to see what the current spec is. Yeah. So okay. Nitro finish and yeah, V63s, 60C medium. 9 to 12 compound, which is a nice radius. Okay, now let's take a look at the Classic S. I wonder if the radius is different. Classic S, nope, 9 to 12 compound. Oh, and it's a Vintage C standard. Okay, so the neck on the antique is a bit fatter. That's good to know. Going to be a little more substantial. That's a difference. Finish is going to be poly, of course. And the pickups are V60 LPs. So yeah, different pickup. Maybe a little more. I'm not 100% sure about this, but the V60 LP might be a little bit more beefy wined than the let me take a look at that. V60 LP versus the V63. Let's take a look at the ohms. So they're about 6.4K, the V63s. That's pretty beefy. And the V60 LP is, where's the spec? 6.3. So slightly different. The bridge pickup's a 7.2 on the low peaks. That's pretty hot. V63 is, bridge pickup is 6.4. They're all the same on a V63, 6.4. So there you go. Slightly different. You know, the neck is ever so slightly hotter on the classic. The classic antique is going to have 3 of the same pickup. That's basically 6.4K, and the regular Classic S is going to be a 6.3K and a 6.3K in the neck in the middle, and then a hotter one in the bridge, 7.2, I think. So maybe a little more balance, you know, overall. Yeah. And then they did, of course, they didn't used to do that back in the 60s. You know, they were all kind of wound loosely to the same specs, so they might vary a little bit, but it's actually slightly more true to the original, I guess, to have the same spec on each pickup, like as what's on the antique. So, as with most things, yeah, the modern version of the guitar, the regular Classic S or whatever, is a little more some modern features, like a slightly hotter bridge pickup to balance out the volumes. Slightly hotter bridge pickup, the standard C neck shape, as opposed to the antique fatter neck balanced pickups. Yeah, maybe should we call them balanced? They're all the same, but maybe in practice, you know, the bridge pickup might seem like you want to raise it up a little more. You can but once again, this stuff is largely, you know, with pickups, you can change the volume of them pretty dramatically by backing them up and down. So you're probably more confused than ever now. But the main thing would be, I would say, a major one is the neck. Like, you know, if you get a chance to try them, decide whether or not you like that fatter 60s medium rather than the 60C standard. Just got a Syn 20 IR with GMP module. Your demo was great. In your opinion, which module is most like the Jose modded sound? Actually, probably the Plexi. To be honest, the Plexi, as I understand it, is kind of a gain stage in front of a Plexi. It's kind of because I'm sure probably the thinking in that, you'd be like, well, why didn't they call it a Jose mod or a mod then? Well, the thinking in it is it's a preamp module. The original Plexi module was made before they were coming up with some modules that have a sort of a phase inverter style circuit in them that lets you simulate the sound of cranking the power section of the amp. So what do I mean by that? Well, like the Plexi module was basically, and this was the idea with a Jose, was basically, I think what Jose was trying to do was give you the sound of a cranked Marshall. This was back in the day when he first started doing mods. Give you the sound of a 4-hole Marshall when it's on 10 or 8 or something, but do it in a more reasonable volume. Because the gain's not really that like much different. Like if you take an old Plexi and you to early 70s amp or whatever, and you crank it way the hell up, it's getting pretty distorted. Jose is sort of actually similar distortion level, but it's just achieving it in a different way by adding a gain stage in front, and then you've got the master volume where you can control it. And it ended up being a slightly different sound. It's not exactly the same, and some people might like that sound for certain things. Does that make sense? I hope so. So anyways, the Plexi module is actually kind of like a Jose in architecture. It's got an extra gain stage in front of a Plexi standard sort of gain stage and EQ in order to give you the sound of a cranked Plexi. Yeah. Thanks for the super chat there, my friend. Appreciate that. What else? Where did the random numbers on username come from? I don't know. You made it, didn't you? Can you make the numbers go away? I'm not sure if you can make them go away or not. I'm not sure. V60LP is voiced to work well with distortion. Yeah, they're a little on the more greasy MIDI side. I know John originally designed it to be that way, whereas the V63 was originally a Landau pickup. I just saw Mike earlier today. He's doing well. It was great to see him. But anyway, he originally when he was with Sir, he had this V63 pickup made. They used to call him the Landau Classic, I think, same pickup as the V63. So they were kind of trying to nail the pickups that he had on an old guitar, I think. V60LP, kind of a 60s style pickup as well, but maybe voiced to have a low peak means the resonant peak of the pickup. Made this sound kind of greasy with distortion. A little less sparkle, stratty, whatever, and a little more of that greasy mids. Yeah. And V63 is glassier. That's what I would say. V63 a little more, those in between position, strat, chime stuff, maybe a bit more. Which single coil works better with vomiting and diarrhea? None. That's when you just want to be in bed, except for the times when you run to the bathroom. All right. What else? Too much information. I hope you know it's Monday. I do. I was ill yesterday. That's where that last comment came from. I had food poisoning. Pretty wicked. Not the worst I've ever had, but I'm 90% better. I'm really a little tired right now. That's about it, because it really messed up my sleep. I ended up sleeping a lot of the day away yesterday. After I remember I intended to sign on at noon and do this, and I was just like, I can't do this. And I was in bed and I was in the chat saying, I can't do this right now. I'm sorry. And I ended up signing off from here, changing the time till now, and falling asleep for the next 4 hours. So I slept from about noon till 4 after all that, after a morning of hell. And so it just buggered me up. So I'm a little out of sorts right now. But Joe says, good to see you're feeling better. Spent the weekend recording music on Luna. I love my life of music. That's awesome, Joe. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. All right. I prefer the antique for its sound and feel. Sir Antique, that is, but I'm worried the neck finish might wear off too much. No, that won't happen. I've got quite a few Sir necks with that finish, and they don't. It feels raw, but it's not. It's actually got a thing on it that'll not go away. And if it ever did, you've got a lifetime warranty and you could have it looked at. How would you set your mix here with the super chat? How would you set your mix when using in-ears levels of various instruments? That's a great question. I generally have a mix. So I like to hear like a song, I like to hear the whole band, a little bit of everybody. You want to watch out to keep everyone else's background vocals kind of low, because open mics on a stage create a lot of phasey stuff and a lot of kind of like just cloudy ambient BS that are in your in-ears. So vocal mics are the main offender for that kind of stuff. So, just be careful about how much background vocals and stuff, and spend some time trying to balance that so that that if the other, the bass player, it's all the way across the stage and his bass amp is behind him and he's got the background vocals loud in your mix, or maybe lead vocals, if that's what he's doing, you get a lot of his, the bass, the DI probably bass in your in-ears, and then whatever the mic is picking up is super phasey compared to that. I'm just giving an example of a scenario that could happen. So it ends up sounding weird in the ears and just kind of, so the lower that you can have everybody else's, you still got to sing in tune, sing with people and stuff if you're doing background vocals yourself. But if you're not, I would recommend keeping those mics at the minimum. So that's one piece of advice. Panning, for guitars, I got used to hearing my own guitar in the left ear. Just if it's going to be in an ear, it's going to be in the left one. And unless I'm on a stage, I guess generally speaking, I'm always on stage left in most of the bands that I'm in. I am right now in Japan, classic rock show, I'm stage left. So I always end up being over there. In any band I've been in the last number of years, Satchvi, same deal. I'm on stage left. So that's great because it just ends up working out. I can just pan it over a little bit to the other side. And there's a super chat I just missed there. So I'm going to grab that in just a second. Don't worry. I'll grab that. That's from Slippets, Tara Slippets. I'll get you in a sec. But anyway, so I like to have my guitar, and I don't do the panning as drastic as I would in like a recorded mix or anything. It's literally like 11 and 1. So I'll just have my guitar a little bit left, and then if there's another guitar player, I've got them a little bit right. And I always like to hear myself just a little bit on top of the band. A little bit. I don't mind even if it's the same and I'm kind of in the mix. It's a little uncomfortable at first, and then you end up getting used to it. I just don't like it when I'm playing and I can't actually tell what I'm doing. That bothers me, and that you risk that happening if you do a mix where you're not on top of everybody, and then the keyboard player has a particularly, they're always the damn offender because their Hammond sound will be way louder than the piano coming out of their keyboard or whatever, and the front of house guy can deal with that song to song, but the monitor people don't generally. So it's like, unless they've got their levels perfectly balanced, if you're in the mix, I mean, I always think it's best to be in the mix. Like, in other words, listen to everybody, listen to everybody, what everybody's doing, then you can play together, But if anybody else has the tendency to be louder on some sounds than on other sounds, or on some songs than on other songs, with the way that they're controlling their own volumes, you blow that out of the water by not leaving yourself any leeway, if that makes sense, So I always like to hear myself a little bit louder on top of the band, because then even if the organ gets really loud, I can still hear myself. Because that's my biggest pet peeve, is when it's like I can't really hear what I'm doing when I'm in the in-ears. And then I'll think about, why is that? And I'm like, oh, it's the goddamn Hammond is so loud, or whatever, or a synth pad or something just got really loud in the in-ears. I know I sound like I don't like keyboard players. I do, but I just like it when they have their guitar players, at least tube amps. Certainly guitar players could be guilty of this too, if they're primarily modeling guitar player users, from patch to patch. They can vary a lot sometimes if you're not really good at dialing in your sounds and aware that when you're using a tube amp, your sounds probably don't jump that much, right? I think it's more when you've got, patch where everything's changing. It's like, this one's 5 dB louder than this one. Oh, I didn't notice, anyway. Yeah. So just a mix, make sure, have the drummer go around the toms, make sure one's not super loud compared to the others, that kind of thing, just to have the front of house person listen, or sorry, the monitor person listen to everything, and, just say, I like a mix, basically with myself a little bit on top. And yeah, if you're another guitar player in the band, maybe pan you guys out just a little bit, and then it'll sound nice in there. Yeah. Super chat here, and then I'll grab that other one I mentioned I was going to get. Have you tried the new Soar Ian Thornley Telly? I have not. Haven't had a chance to. I have not. I don't always get to try all the different Surs. I mean, I get to try a lot, I guess, probably more than most folks. It's a privilege. But when I go out there, they might not have everything there that is new and the latest and greatest that they're making for people, because they'll build the guitars and then send them out to dealers. And I don't get to Sir dealers as much as, some people probably. Yeah, because I'm here on Sunday Live, busy doing this. Terrace says, just wanted to thank you for all the videos, learning so much from them. Thanks. Looking forward to EU tour. Would love to attend a live concert. I'll be in the EU with Classic Rock Show next, which is always a fun show to see. If you like yourself some classic rock, some Led Zeppelin, some Deep Purple. I'll be there January, February. So mostly England and UK broadly. I'll be in Scotland and Wales as well. But I think there's 5 shows in Europe this year. Not that many. I would have thought we were going to do more. I wish we were doing more. But there's one in Finland and a couple in the Netherlands and Belgium, that sort of stuff. So yeah. So come on out January, February. If it's all on theclassicrockshow.com. The dates. Looking at buying Thornbugger pickups right now. How do they sound split? I mean, really good. I think I kind of tend to like the parallel thing more, but the neck Thornbucker does split well, which is almost an anomaly because it's really kind of a low output pickup. So it's not very hot, but it sounds good to me. Drinking Gatorade from yesterday. Electrolytes. Replace those lost fluids. Yeah. Oh, this is a good suggestion. At the first sign of food poisoning, drink Benedictine, the French brandy. I always have a bottle in the house. Yeah, that's, I'm actually, it's kind of like an interesting aside. I haven't had any alcohol in about 7 or 8 days now. I'm getting ready for this operation, so you're not supposed to drink for a few weeks before. So no booze. So I was thinking about that because normally I probably out for dinner on a Saturday night would have had a drink. Not lately. Maybe that screwed me. They say like through, it's sort of anecdotal, but like studies they've done on food poisoning that it's all the people like on ships, they get food poisoning a lot on ships, foodborne illness on kind of confined kind of, cruise ships. And they say it's all the people that drink that don't get it. The alcohol kills everything in your belly. So anyways, yeah. If you're ever just eating anything questionable, just a shot of vodka might be a good idea. Not that, if you don't drink, that's great too. I'm actually enjoying like the, 7 days of no, it's like, feels really good to be honest. So, what do we got here? This UA Sound City plugin. I got it last week and I love my drums on it. Yeah, I've been a long-time user of the UA Oceanway Studios plugin. Started using it 10 years ago, probably when it first came out. And I know it's similar. I've used Sound City quite a bit too. It just does a beautiful thing to anything you want to kind of put in a space, like a real room. That's not a reverb, per se. I mean, it is. It's a reverb at the end of the day. But yeah, just kind of, if it, when you want to tie the sound of a band together. So let's say a couple rhythm guitars and a drum kit, just blend a little bit into this plugin and have it come back on an effect return. And it just sounds like a band playing in a room all of a sudden. It's very nice. So good stuff for sure. Yep. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? On the fence with having a studio drum kit, I thought would be great, but seems like I'm just moving it out of the way every time somebody comes in. Any thoughts? Yeah, it's a whole thing. I mean, miking drums is probably the hardest thing, other than a grand piano. Drums is still harder. Actually, it's more microphones, more pieces. You might want to get this is just an option. If you find yourself not needing it a lot and it's just like there's a drum kit in the way, you could go the electronic kit route and just do drum replacement like Steven Slate drums or something. Do like a not Steven Slate. Well, yeah, you can actually MIDI a kit up to Steven Slate drums for those sounds. I'm talking about one of those Alesis or Roland drum kits. Or just use the internal sounds or whatever. It's just for getting ideas down. I mean, it's not as cool as a real drum kit, but a real drum kit is a whole, mic pre's and microphones and the space and the volume and all of that stuff. So Trigger is great from Steven Slate. It's a nice sound replacement. That's another way to go. But yeah, whether or not it's worth it, hard to say. There's Peter down there with a big old super chat. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Something for the coffee fund. It's been a minute. Videos this week. It has been a minute, and I'm really sorry about that. It's unfortunate that I haven't been able to be more consistent. It's just the nature of this work I've been doing this fall, and I'm all over the place and always just traveling on Sundays, it seems. I aim to always do this when I can, keep it as consistent as I can, but it's just been difficult. In December, it should be pretty consistent. I'll be around all month, and then I'll go in January again, and things might get, this year's just been bonkers for gigs. It's like 4 tours, 4 different bands. So it's so much road all the time. So November 20, wait, what am I here? November 2025. Just looking here. November 2025, where are we here? It's the 24th today. Sunday will be the 30th, and I will be in Tokyo. I should be able to do some sort of live stream this week on the, maybe that evening or something. It might be very early in the morning on Sunday morning or something like that. Try and knock one out. And then I've got one more day in Tokyo. Yeah, it'll be in the middle of my trip to Japan. And then the 7th, see, the only thing about the 7th is that I'm right out of my surgery for my eyes. So bear with me on that one. Might do it, but, I'll probably be like this because I'm going to look pretty scary. When you get strabismus surgery, the whites of your eyes go blood red because it's actually blood. So people thought they'd have stuff to comment on Facebook before. Get ready. Might not be that appealing. So we'll see if I'm able to do it on the 7th or not, but hope so. Certainly the 14th, the 21st, the 28th should be all good for those days, I think. Should be. Try and keep it consistent. By the 4th, I'll be heading back to England for more adventures over there. So we will see. But anyway, you're asking also about videos this week. I do have a video for something coming this week. It's an update to something that's going to be really cool. It's really great, and I'm going to be working on it as soon as I get off of this live stream. Working on a little video right now. So you will see that. And then I've got more videos coming in December. I plan on I'm going to do a video for the Friedman Jose. I've got one sitting right there on the floor. Got a start on that video already, but I won't be able to work on it until I get back in December again. So that's going to happen. And what else? The Schultz sugar cone speaker, going to do that. Some pedals coming up in December. I'll try and put out about probably 5 videos in the month of December, something like that, while I'm home and kind of recuperating from this operation. I can hopefully just sit in here and, over a couple of weeks, film a few things. So, any recommendations to start with fuzz pedals? I really always recommend I feel like a broken record with this, but my fuzz pedal for people that don't understand fuzz pedals is the Starlight Fuzz from Crazy Tube Circuits, because it kind of is like an overdrive at low gain settings, and it kind of like somewhat similar to a distortion, but it's definitely a fuzz when the gain gets up high. So it's kind of on the, I don't want to say polite side, it's because it can sound pretty wild, but it's just friendly. It works well with different amps. A really wide ranging tone control. A lot of fuzzes are, just kind of finicky beasts. They're wild and primitive and great, but yeah, you want to kind of get maybe something that is broadly tweakable, and I find the Starlight is great for that. It's a simple pedal to dial in, put all the knobs on 5 and just see what it sounds like, and then tweak from there. And it's just really, really good sounding to me. So kind of fills the space of it's a little more big muff than it is fuzz face, which is its own thing. Because that's the thing. When we're talking about fuzz, are we talking about a big muff or are we talking about fuzz face? A fuzz face to me is that warm, darker, vintagey, collapsing, really broad note, and very sensitive to the volume control on the guitar if you're using it as it was intended to be, which is with high impedance coming out of your guitar right into it. And it's a whole wonderful world, the fuzz face thing. That's so cool. A big muff is a little more like, it homogenizes, I find, the sound a lot more than something like a fuzz face, which is more sensitive to what you're putting into it by far. Guitar pickups and, muff can be a little more turn it on and there's the sound. You change guitars, I don't really hear a hell of a lot of difference between this guitar and that guitar. Maybe a little bit, it tends to homogenize, and it's not sensitive to the guitar volume control like a fuzz face is, or tone bender. So these different varieties of fuzzes, yeah. But something good and basic that's not. I just find it can be difficult for people to understand, especially with modern pedal boards, buffers, and things like that. Sometimes a fuzz face, they can be like, "This sounds terrible," but it's like sounds so radically different if you're running it with any kind of buffer or low impedance signal going into it. You just have to be careful of that. If you get a fuzz face or a tone bender, what you want to do is plug in a guitar cable into it right out of your guitar with passive pickups. You can't use it with EMGs, really. Just forget about even trying. And then go right out of that into an amp and listen to what it's doing. And then you'll understand the fuzz face from there, if you've never done it. And that's why you say to start with, I would just say, if you're going to get a fuzz face, make sure you just plug it in guitar, pedal, amp, play with it, understand what it does, understand how it works, what it's doing. You have to get the knobs up generally quite high on them to get unity gain out of them and kind of make it work like it was designed to work. Yeah. If you kind of don't want to deal with those idiosyncrasies though, and put it on a pedal board somewhere after a buffer or something like that, what you're going to want to do is get something like a Starlight, I would say, the Crazy Tube Circuits. And then it'll give you broadly a great fuzz character, but it'll be a lot more versatile as far as what you can put around it and working with different pickups and that kind of thing. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Yeah. Hey, Pete, I came across this video of Chester, or I know what you mean, Chester joining Chris on stage from 2014. It was not 2014. It was 2008. Unless they did something together in 2014. But if I was there, it's possible. But if I was there, then it was 2008. We did a Linkin Park tour called the Project Revolution Tour. They did it for a few years. It was kind of like a mini sort of Linkin Park festival where they had other, a bunch of different bands come out. There was an A stage, B stage. And we were direct support for Linkin Park on that tour. So Chester used to come up and do Hunger Strike with us every night. And so, yeah, I probably played Hunger Strike with Chester about 35 times or something like that on that tour, which was great. And there's lots of videos out there of us doing it from back in the day. Did I know him? Yeah, a little bit. He was really nice. Out of all the Linkin Park guys, he was the one that always seemed to be around, like from the beginning of the day till the end of the day. We were on it was a really fun tour. That's my memory of it. It was kind of like summer camp, that tour. We didn't have hotel rooms every day. We would just roll from venue to venue to venue. So if there was 2 gigs, 2 days in a row, we'd play our set, always hang out afterwards, watch Linkin Park, and you can get to be a fan of a band too that way, because it's like you get to see them so much. So I saw Linkin Park like 30 plus times. And you figure out the things, whether or not you're a fan, you figure out things you like about them and things that are, like what they really do well and different people's strengths. And Chester was, I think, an amazing front man. He was just a really good performer and really worked his ass off up there every night consistently. So anyways, we get off stage, watch them, hang out afterwards. There'd always be kind of like good, parking lot party vibe afterwards with, some of the most fun times I could remember touring or the hangs after shows like that, multi-band things where, in the back parking lot, somebody's got some lawn chairs out and they're cooking food, or, and somebody's got a boom box and you're just hanging out by the buses and stuff and having a good time. That was kind of like that every night on the Linkin Park tour. And I mean, we got to know all the bands, got to hang and know one another pretty well, and it was really fun. There was a girl that was like working in one of the concessions that was on the tour. I ended up dating her for like a year or whatever, which was fun. It just was like that, it was like a fun summer, like a fun, where we were all just hanging out after every show and stuff. And so Chester, my memory of him is that, because what I'm saying is we wouldn't go to hotels every day. We like rolled to the next venue, and I'd wake up in the parking lot of some amphitheater, the Verizon Wireless Amphitheater or whatever, outside of wherever town. And you'd get up. I had a bike, I remember, on that tour. It was on the equipment truck, so I'd go pull my bike off. I could ride all around the venue and stuff. That was really fun. And you just end up going inside the venue and showering in the dressing room and stuff. There'd always be showers and stuff at those kinds of venues. Do that, and then go in catering, get your food. So you'd see each other to get, 10:30 a.m., 11 a.m. for breakfast every day. And Chester was always there. He was always there, like all day, pretty much. You'd see him, hanging out. And so many times I'd sit and eat lunch with him or breakfast and just rap about stuff. And he was always cool. Really nice, just a down to earth, kind of normal dude. I didn't see the other guys that much. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just never, you'd see Mike around a little bit. But the other guys, barely ever saw them in the guitar player a little bit, but other than that, you'd never see the other dudes backstage and stuff. I just didn't. I don't know what they were, where they were or what they were doing, but maybe they just had hotels and they would just show up super late and do the gig and then leave, But I'm glad that we didn't do that. I'm glad that we actually had the experience of hanging out and making friends with all the bands every day and stuff. It was so much fun. It was like just really good times. Yeah. And he was a nice cat. It's my memory. All right. What else? I'm pretty blown away with how consistent you managed to be. I don't know if anybody else with your commitment. You mean like doing this show? It's to be honest, it's selfish. I mean, I just really enjoy it. So it's also like a little centering, grounding thing. I'm kind of a creature of habit. Like, I do the same things a lot in my, when I come home. I like to go to, even when I'm traveling, man. I mean, when I go to Tokyo or whatever, I've got my favorite coffee shops and I got my favorite things that I like to do. And doing those things in different cities makes me feel like I'm always at home to some degree. And this does. So doing this live stream is one of those things that I consider like if I can keep it consistent, it's a sort of a grounding, centering thing in a world of like me always moving all the time. That's what it feels like for me. So yeah. Yeah. Prayers for your procedure. I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there a difference between heavy metal and hard rock? Absolutely. I mean, I would say there's a lot of crossover, but heavy metal is Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. Like, I don't think of Iron Maiden as a rock band, really. We were doing it, and the reason I bring them up is because we were playing a Maiden song in Classic Rock Show. Maybe it wasn't last year. Maybe it was the year before, 2023. And I was kind of like, I don't know if this is classic rock. It's a great song, and I love Maiden, but this is the second wave of British heavy metal. And so I just never considered it, hard rock, yeah. What do you guys think? What's a hard rock band? What's a metal band from the same era? Kind of it's a funny discussion, but it's like I can think of more bands that I definitely don't really consider like a classic rock band. One of them's Maiden. I would say Judas Priest. They're definitely a heavy metal band, Thin Lizzy. they were so all over the map. I mean, they had great ballads, but they're more like a hard rock band, or became that at least by the time they were doing, Thunder and Lightning and all that. Not a metal band though, I don't think. Anyway, what gear from 2025 has found a place on your rig? The VP4 from Fractal. I've been using on my pedal board in the one I've got over in Japan. It's kind of my second board. So that's kind of a cool piece of new gear that I've been using a lot. What else? Well, that's probably the main one. I think if there's anything else, but that's the one that comes to mind right now. Fractal VP4. Do you use tube pedals or tube preamps? Not that much. I mean, I used the Friedman IRX when I first got to Japan because I didn't have amps there for the first couple days. So I experimented using it as a tube preamp going into the rented Fryat power amp, and it actually sounded great. Worked really good. So IRX, yeah, with some effects after it via the VP4 and some pedals before it, and then so I did use that, but only in a rehearsal situation. Yeah. Yeah. Paul says the guy was probably just jealous. You're a handsome dude. You're talking about the jerks on Facebook, right? Great to get it fixed. Does it affect your focus? So I have a this eye turns in and is really I'm very nearsighted in both eyes, but more nearsighted in my right eye than my left. So because my right eye is weak, it did this lazy thing where it just turns in. I don't really still understand the difference between a lazy eye and strabismus exactly, but they work together to mess you up. So yeah, so it's this eye that is kind of the one not pulling for the team. And your brain just sort of turns it off, and then it can tend to just kind of, because it's the visual input from the left is better. So you kind of have to work on it too. That's the other thing. I was talking to this lady this morning, she's a really nice woman, about strabismus and vision therapy and trying to get the right one to work more after I have this surgery. So I'll check in with her after it and see what happens. Fuzz pedals are so different that it's really personal choice. I agree. I prefer an octave fuzz. See, totally different sound, right? Big Muff Ram's head, very nice. Never bonded with a fuzz face. Yeah, I mean, a person that bonds with, like, I don't think you really saw Gilmore use fuzz face that much. Maybe in the early days, I don't think so though. Maybe somebody out there will correct me on that, but he's more of a Big Muff player. Big Muff. You never saw Billy Corgan with a fuzz face. It was Big Muff, that big fat wall of sound, giant notes sound, and not such a soft. It's definitely got a soft attack, not punchy, but not as soft as a fuzz face, which just squishes out on every note. Different thing. And then an octave fuzz is almost a totally different thing. So there's many different shades. Yeah. Not really a fuzz fan. However, I plan a fuzz on my new board. No, sensitive to, it'd be interesting to try. Mufflet, the versatile for Gilmore sounds. Yeah, it's something like that. Like the other one that I like a lot, I know I've got it right here. It's the Ryra Muff clone. This one kind of models a 90s green Russian-made Big Muff. Really good sounding for that sound. So I just find it very easy to dial in. So that I used for a little while on my board, but the Starlight kind of gets me there and sort of does more, I think. So, yeah, that's what I use for my versatile fuzz that works with buffers. Yeah, there are a lot of fuzzes that are kind of bass heavy. Dealing with that is often the challenge. Agree. Roll back the guitar volume, use a range master. What else you want to try? Yeah. Any good NAMM rumors for the coming year? I mean, I know a bunch of stuff that's coming, some interesting things, but nothing I can tell you about. I'll get in trouble. Any Thanksgiving song recommendations? I really don't. I don't know. Is there any Thanksgiving songs as a holiday? Is there specific? What am I forgetting about that I should know of? Uh-huh. Let's see what else we got here. I heard that at NAMM, the Captain Chapper is going to challenge Pete and Dan from TPS to an octagon cage match. You never know. I can't go to NAMM this year. I'm going to be in England gigging. There's 4 gigs over that weekend. Last year, I was able to fly over and go to it, but that was a whirlwind, man. Like, go to England for a week and a half, turn around, come back for NAMM, fly back again, and go right into a gig day. And it was cool. I remember doing it, and I was fine, and it was all good, but I'm not doing it this year. Next year, probably will, though, because I'll have more stuff coming next year, gear and things. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, what else we got? Let's see. Hard rock and metal are 2 different materials. That's true. 2 different physical materials. Guns N' Roses, hard rock. Agreed. Not a metal band. Metallica, metal. Agreed. 100%. Queen. Queen's so broad. I mean, Queen is like its own style of music almost. Yeah. Sabbath metal, Zeppelin rock. Very good. Yeah. Where do you put EVH? His own style of music. Yeah, I think Eddie was so broad that, I mean, what do you call little guitars? With the whole intro and everything. It's like, the Spanish intro on nylon string and then becomes a rock song, eventually. So it's hard to call them. I certainly don't think Van Halen was ever a metal band, They were a great American rock band for sure, but pretty broad, I think. I don't think people give them enough credit for being as broad as they were. Yeah. Early metal has a lot of crossover, for sure. Early Priest is pretty rock and roll. You're right. Living After Midnight, pretty rock and roll. Even earlier, though. I know you're going way back, but yeah. Talking about music is like whistling about chickens. That's funny. I like it. Fractal's new AM4. Is that an amp modeler that's like a simple? I haven't heard about that. No, I haven't. Yeah. AM4 modeler. Didn't even hear about this. I've been out of the loop with my food poisoning. AM4 Fractal. So I assume this is the amp modeling. Introducing the AM4. Okay. Amp modeler. So this is a simple basic with effects and amp models built in. That's very interesting. Very interesting. Amp modeling, speaker sim, effects, and more. Interesting. Yeah, these new both this and the VP4, right? The one I've got. They seem to be like geared around, like maybe you add a few pedals, put this as the kind of like centerpiece on your pedal board, because obviously, yeah, maybe you want to add a compressor or something. It's got drive blocks in it, and it looks like it has other effects too, but with only 4 blocks, you got to kind of pick and choose what you want to do. So put it on your board with a few other pedals. Pretty cool. How much is it? Let's see. $6.99, same price. Flagship tone, compact format, easy to use. Yeah. Speaker sim, bunch of effects. That's cool. Simple fractal amp modeler. Missed the super chat. Do you have a favorite of the Badger series used with pedals for driving effects with a hard-hitting drummer? I would say the 35, or sorry, the 30. The 30 seems to have a little more, whatever the design with the EL34s is, I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and do it, but just my memory, go back and check. But my memory is that the 30 has a little more, like it does clean and dirtier better, whereas the 18 and the 35 are great in that in between zone. Does that make sense? Like that EL84, is it broken up? Is it not? Kind of vibe. But that the 30 would do cleaner and dirtier better, more clean, more dirty. That makes sense. So if you're going to use it just with pedals and stuff, set it primarily clean with a gain on maybe 4 or something, and then mainly pedals for drive and effects. Like you can see me using it at that Iridium show with Steve Stevens that I did years ago, and Sebastian Bach many years ago. That was a 30 used with like I had a Plexitone, the original big box one on my board for Marshall distortion. It sounded great through the Badger, I thought. Yeah. AC/DC is a crossover between metal and hard rock. I don't think AC/DC was ever metal. They're a rock band. Maybe in the early days of metal, like in the later whatever. Okay, so like maybe around for those about to rock or something, I guess one could argue. When they were like the most distorted that the Tones ever got, and a little like harder edge, sound to it wasn't like Get It Hot and stuff like that. It was definitely rock songs, right? But by the time they got to For Those About to Rock, it was like early 80s. Metal was like becoming really popular, and maybe they had hardened their sound a little bit. But then they went back to, by Fly on the Wall and all that, they were more going back to the older sound right away, I feel like. So maybe for a brief second, they were bordering on some songs that were almost metal. I still think rock band, AC/DC. Let's see. How useful is a pedal like the Origin MEQ on a pedal board to work in conjunction with your amp and other drives? All those Origin kind of the oddball sort of drive pedals are great. I mean, I was always like, what's this going to be like? It's like a console style EQ or something of the preamp, and I'd plug it in and go like, sounds really good. Like, so you can hear it in my videos. I don't have a hardcore memory of exactly what all those pedals because there's a couple different ones, what those pedals sound like. But I would go back and watch my own videos to learn and just listen to what I did with them. They're all some sort of gain stage that you can clip with and an EQ of some sort. And then, and my memory, I was thinking when I did the videos that these are a little bit of a tougher sell because it's not like sounds like a Marshall or, recreates an old pedal but makes it better or anything. It was like this new thing. Here's a gain stage from a console. And I was like, what's that going to sound like? So it's a little bit of a tougher sell because people didn't have like a frame of reference of like what that would do. But I think that's kind of fun because, just playing devil's advocate, like the neat thing about back in the day was folks like Richie Blackmore would take an Akai tape deck and put it in front of a Marshall or a Vox AC30 or something and use the tape deck gain stage as a drive into an amp. And I think there's something to be said for that, that's that kind of creativity that, I don't know, nowadays there's so many pedals and so many, and everybody kind of copies the same thing a lot. It's a little bit homogenized. So I think it's neat to be like, if somebody took that MEQ and made a great song or record where people were like, what the hell is that guitar tone? That's amazing. And they were like, oh, I use this Origin MEQ in front of a super reverb or something. People would be like, man, that sounds amazing. That'd be cool because it'd be like a unique rig. We tend to hear about the same things over and over again, and I'm just guilty of that as anybody, We're creatures of habit, but then also the only way you can get somewhere new is by trying some weird combo that ends up sounding really good. I just miss those days, Ty Tabor with the crazy Strat that nobody wanted, the Elite with the active preamp in it, hitting a solid state lab amp, and using some quad reverb or whatever it was, a MIDI verb, for his, and boy, did it ever sound amazing, So do you still use your Shure Hombre? I haven't for a little while, but a great amp. Tweed, sorry, not Tweed, Brown Deluxe style. Terrific. If I was wanting some early ZZ Top or to bust out, some proto Marshall tones, I would reach for it and mic it up. Yeah. Yeah. What else? What else are we talking about here? Eddie might be the most influential metal guitar player. That's interesting. Maybe. I mean, there's definitely the crossover in the lead guitar of the Flash and stuff like that, you know. Maybe. I know what you're saying. Yeah. Very ironic that many people know EVH for keyboards. You know, there's a great Ted Templeman. His biography is amazing. He talks a lot about Jump and how he didn't like it and how he thought it was going to fail miserably, and boy was he ever wrong. You know, he talks about that in the book and how he couldn't hear it, couldn't see it, didn't understand why, you know, how Ed thought it was like nobody wants to see you play keyboards and all that stuff. And then they came out and did it, and it blew up and was huge, you know. And he had to kind of give it up to him and be like, that was one that I just couldn't see coming. So, yeah, I found that interesting. Just something that Ed really wanted to do, you know, where he had to stick to his guns and, you know, I'm going to make this keyboard song. It's going to be great. Everybody else, leave me alone. Yeah. We've gone full circle back to all-in-one pedals, and I don't know how I feel about it. Yeah, I know what you mean. There is a thing with that, with like when I think about it with like the quad cortex or like different, you know, similar. It's like I could do what I need to do, I think, pretty much with, even if I was using an amp, PT100 4-cable method with something like a quad cortex. And I'd get a great sound, and it would be very portable and consistent and all that stuff. And I know that. And then there's still a part of me that just goes, yeah, but just use your pedal board because it's cool and it's fun to have individual pedals for everything. It's like there's so much more that can go wrong. I mean, there's so many connections on a pedal board, and, you know, multiple, you know, the power supplies and all the different pedals and everything. And they're harder to program. And the amount of programming I got to go through to do, you know, tell my H90 what to do, tell the SD3000 what to do, program the MIDI for the amp, program that, and you got to do all this different, when it's all integrated into one, like even just using the VP4 instead of two different time-based effects, it's so much easier to do the VP4 because it's all in one editor and just really simple. But all that said, at the end of the day, I love the sound that I get out of my big pedal board, and it's like kind of worth it, you know, to do the different. I'm, for as difficult as it is to program my big pedal board, because I've got, you know, I usually got the H90 hooked up to an editor on my laptop. I've got the Musicom Lab switcher hooked up to a different editor, both going to my laptop with two different USB cables. I'm making sounds. I'm telling, you know, like just to make a sound can take a half an hour. And so if you got to do multiple songs, and it takes like a couple weeks to like do everything for just a tour to program everything up. But at the end of the day, the results I'm always really happy with. So, and there's just something cool about individual pedals, you know, things that are optimized for certain things. It's just cool. When it's all in one, it just feels a little more like, even if it sounds great, and it sounds great. I mean, but it just feels a little more homogenized or something when you're doing it all in one unit. So, yep, that's a thing. Well, I think I'm going to split pretty soon, guys. I've been going about an hour, a little more than an hour, and I think I got to go because I'm just a little tired, first of all, from my adventures yesterday. But on top of that, I got to get a demo done as I leave the day after tomorrow to go to Japan. So I go pretty soon, but I'll hang another 10 or so. Thanks for all the help. Says True World. Happy holidays. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Once again, I'm so sorry I wasn't here yesterday, and but I appreciate some of you showing up today, because I know it's a weird time too, Monday. Probably a lot of people work and stuff. I like how my VP4 works with my Synergy amp and the new Marshall JMP Pre. That's cool. Yep. Braxall says, "How are you feeling?" I'm good. Yeah, I'm okay today. I'm just kind of sleepy. I'm like, took it out of me yesterday, like big time. My sleep got all messed up. How about the White Snake? Seems they're both hard rock and heavy metal in different time periods. I guess so. I think of them as a hard rock band, hard rock band. I don't think a White Snake is a metal band. I don't think they ever would have said they were, metal. I don't think so. Yeah. Yep. Okay, what else we got here? What are you using at your studio to practice? So reactive load into the computer and then add effects. Yeah, I often, if I'm like, say, I'm learning songs for a tour and practicing, getting things going, I'm making the sounds, like programming my pedal board and all that. But what I do is I've got a PT100 over there because that's my amp that I use on tour all the time. And the pedal board's all plugged into it. So right now I've got my pedal board that's at my feet. You can't see it, all hooked up 4-cable method to that amp. I've got the second half of stereo, the other side going out to that PT15 that's sitting right there. And then both of those signals, the PT15 has built-in load box, so that makes it easy. I just take a line out of that and go into my interface. PT100 is feeding a SUR reactive load, and I'm going out of that into my interface. So I've got both signals coming out of both amps, and I pan them hard left and right and just add speaker simulation in the computer so that I can, just practice the songs and play, so no cabinets or anything like that. And that works really well. Yeah. Aren't 5150 amps pretty popular among metal players? Well, you make a good point. Eddie, I think, loves metal. I mean, he really likes heavy. That, like, the older Eddie got, I think, the more heavy he wanted to be, which is kind of almost like borne out on some of the songs that you heard on that last Van Halen studio album that were not the old ones that were kind of like revamped old tunes, like "She's the Woman" or whatever that song was called, or like different. It's more like the newer tunes were like heavier, riffs and stuff. And he really liked heavy stuff. Like, I remember when I made a video for the 5150 Overdrive, and he was like, "This is great. Can you do another one and make it heavier?" He actually asked me to write a heavier tune. So if you look at my second 5150 video, that was direct request from Ed to do something that was a little more like, hard. And that's what I came up with for that. So yeah. So and I think that's, you see that with his tonal leanings too in later years, was he liked more distortion, harder, like more, that just where his personal taste went. So yeah. Have you taken the new Line 6 Stadium X for a test drive? You may have seen a video I did over at their place. It was mainly on Instagram, I think, on Reels, but introducing some of the new amp sounds and stuff. So that's my only experience with it so far, but I did go to Line 6 and dial up sounds on the fly and then play some riffs through it. And you can see that on the video that I did for them, which should be on there, probably on their YouTube on Shorts, but also on Instagram. Sorry, I'm hiccuping. I don't know if it's a hiccup or a burp. Yeah. And it seems really good. Like, that thing will do a lot of stuff, so I want to make a full video for it, but I don't have one here yet. Yeah. What else we got here? I always buy into all the modeling tech and always end up going back to the raw amp in my pedal lord. You are a pedal lord. I think you mean pedal board. I totally understand. Yeah. Neil Schoen was talking about that recently. Yeah. Do you have a matching Satch Vibe Band 2026? No, but I got this hoodie. This is all I got right now. Yeah. Listening to Eat 'Em a Smile on Skyscraper lately. Vi's amazing. I mean, he's incredible. He did some unbelievable work and continues to. The thing about Steve is that actually some of the most interesting things that I think he's ever done, he's done recently. You know, and I love that about him. Like that tune "Little Pretty" that we played on tour was unbelievable. You know, and that's a recent, you know, just a few years old now composition. You know, I like where he's going now. Like he's doing some really, really interesting stuff. So he's brilliant. And a riot. I miss that guy. I miss all those guys. I miss Joe and Steve and just the Hangs and Marco and Kenny. You know, they're just a blast. So yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. We so enjoy the show. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. Oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world unless I have to. Yeah. All right, I'm down at the bottom of the chat. I'm just going to take a couple more here, and then I'm going to jet. I found a chorus in the Tone X1 sounding better than the actual Boss C2. Hey, that could be. That could be. No reason why, you know, that the modeled version couldn't even be better. See the mini VH4 head. Can I see the mini VH4 head and hear it, please? Didn't I do mini VH4 head? I think I did a video for that. You're talking about the diesel? I think I did it. There's a video that I did on Instagram. I dig that 5150 tone, but I think it's overused. Don't feel like a lot of players these days seek out their own sounds. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, is that, you know, the combination of things making a tone, you know, like a weird preamp going into something else, it's a little bit of a lost art, a little bit. Oh, I lit that one up already. Yeah. Vi is such a unique player. He blows my little brain. Yeah, he's a unique human being. You know, he's one of a kind. Only one Steve Vai on Earth. Kenny's not only a badass drummer, but he's funny as well. He's really funny and he's really fun, and he's got a great big heart, and he's a wonderful guy. Yeah. No Friedman Jose. Yeah, no, that's coming. You're late, so you missed out. Yeah, no, I was saying I started on a video and I'll actually finish it in December. So I got a riff written and everything for it, so I know what I'm doing at least. I got a little map out of what I want to play musically with it, and then I'll show the features, etc. Yeah. That fella's asking about the VH4 Mini. So I did a video for it, so check out my video and see what you think. They're cool. I mean, those little amps, you know, the little Friedman, the little Soldano, they kind of capture the basic color of each individual maker's tone, I think. It's sort of like having a pedal with a power amp attached, you know, and the pedal on amps like that many times tries to kind of recreate the preamp circuit from a certain amplifier, but do it using solid state stuff. Yeah. Does John Suhr ever mention his time studying with Bill Connors? No, I don't know about that, actually. I would have to check that out. Glad you're feeling better. Have a safe trip to Japan. Thanks. Land of sumo and sushi. On my way back soon. All right, guys. This is a great place to leave the chat for this week. Yes, be exactly that. Be the first you. Somebody was saying the world doesn't need another Eddie Van Halen. It needs the first you. I agree. You know. You know, I always compare my friend Yvette Young a little bit to Ed, because completely different. She probably never heard Van Halen growing up or anything, but she is a musician that had a classically trained background, like somebody else that came before Van Halen, and played piano like Eddie Van Halen, and also played violin. And then kind of put it all down and went, I'm going to play guitar for me. I'm going to learn how to do this and do it my own way, kind of like Eddie Van Halen, right? And so she ended up doing a lot of tapping stuff, because she does a lot of tapping. And I was like, kind of Eddie Van Halen, like kind of, but totally roundabout, never getting influenced. And I told her, not to sound like old guy, like you should listen to Van Halen, but I was like, I think you might find it interesting to actually listen to some Van Halen because of like where you ended up. It has nothing to do with drawing on that as an influence, but being a piano, to classical pianist, and then coming from that to guitar and making it up for your own, not afraid to do alternate tunings and just, use crazy gear, didn't really know what. She's got kind of some of the same spirit, I think. Like, so I find that interesting, like the creativity, and where they both ended up was similar but different, with the tapping and stuff. So she's one that I check it out if you haven't thought about it. But yeah, such an amazing player. I agree, and friggin' hilarious too. Awesome person, good friend of mine. But check out what she does, and with that in mind, I'd be interested to see what those out there think. I think there's some similarity with how they developed on the instrument and got to this place of doing different stuff based on starting off on piano and then being like, why can't I just do a similar thing on the neck? Yeah. So anyway, all right, everybody, have a great week. I'm gonna get to work here on this video, lay some stuff down, and you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. I haven't really said that yet. With your families and stuff. Enjoy. I'll be in Japan on Thanksgiving, and next Sunday I'll try and do one from there. And just bear with me, but I'll do something. And appreciate you all showing up on a Monday instead of a Sunday. And everybody have a terrific week. Be nice to one another. Take care, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Take it easy.